for the Taipei Poetry Festival.
我是蔡仁仪，我是今年台北诗歌节的驻市诗人。
And this is my lovely translator, Even.
我是今天的翻译 Even.
So give it up for Even. She'll be working hard all night. So I'm so happy and proud and honored to be able to share my work with you tonight.
我真的觉得非常的开心，而且非常的荣幸，我今天可以站在这里跟大家分享我的作品。
It's been a dream come true for me to be able to perform in Taiwan, especially because my Mandarin is so horrible.
对我来说，这像是一场美梦成真。我竟然可以再回到台湾来演出，因为我的中文实在是非常的烂。
So the kind of poetry I do in the United States is called spoken word.
我在美国所从事的演出叫做口语诗演出。
So it's poetry that's written not really for the page, but for the stage.
念诗，但是不是在纸上面，而是在舞台前方面。
And it's poetry that's written to have an impact on you, the audience. So hopefully that will happen tonight.
它的目的呢，是希望我的诗能够对现场的观众能够有一些不同的影响。那我希望今天也能够造成一些不同的回响。
So I have 10 poems for you tonight.
今天晚上我们总共有10首诗的作品要念。
And I first became inspired to write this set of poems when I learned about the Barbie doll factory in Taishan, very close to here.
我为什么开始写这系列的作品？是因为一间在泰山的 Barbie 工厂。
Growing up in the United States, you can't escape Barbie, not really.
在美国长大，你其实很难离开 Barbie 这个玩具。
And it was a very confusing experience for me as a young girl growing up Asian American, dealing with both Western and Eastern standards of beauty.
对我来说，身为一个在美国长大的台裔美人，对我来说，在成长的过程最困难的就是去分辨美式，应该说西方式以及东方式对于美的不同的界定跟标准。
So the poems you'll hear tonight deal with identity, culture, and beauty, and all of my weird experiences as a Taiwanese American woman growing up in the West.
所以你今天晚上所听到的诗，会包含了文化、自我认同以及美丽这件事情，还有很多是关于我在人生的过程当中所遇见的一些有趣或者是奇怪的经验。
So again, this is not a normal theater show.
所以你们感受到了吗？这不是一场你曾经看过的一场平凡的演出。
So you can relax, let it all hang out. You can laugh, you can clap.
所以在这场演出的过程当中，你可以做任何的事情，你可以大笑，你可以大叫，你可以拍手，甚至你可以什么都不做的躺在那里都可以。
I've been told that Taiwanese audiences are shy, but I don't believe it.
在我来之前，很多人警告我说，台湾的观众非常的害羞，但我绝对不相信。
So this is your night to let it all hang loose, okay?
OK， 所以今天是你们的夜晚，尽情的放开，感受它。
So are you all ready for a poem?
你们准备好了吗？
Okay, yeah, here we go. Okay, so the first poem I'm going to do is inspired by the founder of, or the creator of the Barbie doll.
第一首我要念的诗，其实是灵感来自于芭比的创造者。
It's very interesting that in researching this show, I realized that a lot of times women don't get credited for the incredible business people that they are.
在这研究这件事情的过程当中呢，我突然有一种感觉是，女人其实跟商业之间其实有很大的连接性。
And even though people can say that the Barbie doll creates a certain kind of stereotype of a woman,
虽然很多人觉得说，芭比娃娃其实创造了很多所谓的标准，或者是我们说原型 stereotype。
The creator of the Barbie doll herself was very different from any stereotypical woman.
但是芭比的创造者其实是一个跟芭比娃娃完全不相干的一个人，长相，我说一直是长相。
Businessmen who had meetings with this woman were so scared of her.
那些商人在跟这个芭比的创造者这位女人开会的时候，他们非常害怕。
That in English there's a phrase that you're meeting your moment of truth.
在英文里面有一句谚语是说，你在面对一个真相。
But her name was Ruth, so when they had a meeting with her, they said they were meeting their moment of Ruth.
而这个创造者的名字呢，英文是 Ruth， 那他们就会说，他们真的是在认真的看见一个可怕的真相。
So this first poem is for Ruth Handler, the creator of the Barbie doll.
所以第一首诗要献给 Ruth Handler 这位芭比的创造者。
Moment of Ruth. For Ruth Handler, the inventor of the Barbie doll. If Barbie were more like her maker, she'd have deep brown eyes and a hooked nose. She'd be a Jewish Polish girl from Denver named Ruth Mauskowitz to be exact. If Barbie were more like her maker, she'd be the youngest of 10 born to immigrant parents, her father as legendary for his strength as his gambling. She wouldn't even like playing with dolls. If Barbie were more like her maker, she'd juggle 2 jobs in high school, fall in love with a boy named Elliot at the B'nai B'rith, charge him a nickel a dance. She'd pack her bags to marry him in LA, telling him to not throw his artist dreams away. She'd hustle to sell his designs for him instead. If Barbie were more like her maker, she'd prove her husband, the board of directors, and the male toy buyers wrong. A doll with breasts will never sell, they said. Girls only dream to be mothers. A baby doll is all that they want. She'd name the doll after her daughter and say, I understood the need of little girls to project themselves into their dreams. If Barbie were more like her maker, it would be impossible to freeze her in time. Posing her limbs could never happen politely. Her smile belying the empire in her eyes, calculating dollars for every doll sold, driving forward dreams in the millions. So that's my first poem.
希望大家能够对他是有更多的反应，好不好？把你真实的自己流出来。
So now we'll get kind of the rhythm and the flow of the evening, right?
OK， 所以我们要开始感受到今晚的这个心情还有声音的律动了哈，把你的身体打开来。
Some of the things I didn't put in this poem was there's also an incredible story of the business that Ruth started after she created the Barbie doll.
有一个小故事我并没有放进诗里面，是这个 Ruth 她在创造了这个 Barbie 之后，跟这些商人所发生的一些故事。
She was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to have a mastectomy.
她之后被诊断出有了乳癌，所以呢，她把一半的乳房其实是切除的。
But she found that all of the prosthetic breasts at that time were made by men and didn't fit correctly.
但是她发现所有的那时候的因为切除乳房，他们是会戴一种假的这个胸罩，那这个叫义乳。那这个义乳呢，其实那时候是用类似像枕头的这个材质做的，并不舒服，然后也这个 size 也都不太一样。
So she started her own business called Nearly Me.
所以她开始另外一个新的这个事业，叫做 Nearly Me。
And she said it was the first man-made breast made by a woman.
所以呢，她说呢，这是世上第一个男人做的这个乳房，但是是为了女人而做的。
So I don't know about you, but I would much rather have a Ruth Handler doll than a Barbie doll.
我不知道你怎么想，但是呢，我宁可要一个这个他做的义乳，更多就是宁可要这个而不要这个漂亮的芭比娃娃。
Because then you would have little girls knowing that they could start multi-million-dollar businesses no matter what they were interested in.
所以呢，这样你可以告诉很多的小女孩，不管你长得怎么样或拥有什么东西，你其实都可以创造不一样的这个产值。
Everybody doing all right?
所以你们还好吗
Okay.
？OK.
So the next poem I'm going to share with you is the one that was inspired by the factory workers here in Taishan.
所以第二首要跟各位分享的诗是，其实我是被这个灵感来自于在泰山的芭比娃娃工厂。
From an American standpoint, we always get reports about labor conditions in factories in Asia.
在美国人的角度来看，我们永远看到的是这些漂亮的娃娃是从美国是从亚洲运进来的。
So I was thinking in my mind about a lot of the human rights abuses that you hear about in factories today.
所以在我的脑袋里面，我其实想到的是关于人权这件事情，在工厂工作的这些人。
But what surprised me most and also moved me was that when I visited the museum where the factory was and also corresponded with one of the former workers over email, there was an enormous sense of pride.
但最让我惊讶的一件事情呢，是我在研究这件事的过程当中，我到了过去工厂的旧址，现在是一个博物馆。那我同时也在跟曾经在那里工作的人用 email 往来的方式去了解他们过去工作的状态。我很惊讶的是，他们其实是有一种骄傲存在的。
Thousands of these women committed their lives to making these dolls. So Barbie is a part of their history, and they're a part of Barbie's history.
这些女人其实用了她的生命在制造这些芭比娃娃，所以可以说，芭比娃娃是她生命中非常重要的一个部分，而她同时也是芭比历史上非常重要的一个部分。
So this next piece is called Taishan Dolls.
所以下一首诗，我们一起来感受泰山娃娃。
Taishan Dolls. Half of all the world's Barbie dolls from 1967 to 1987 were made in a factory in Taishan, Taiwan. Workers from the factory later opened a museum on its site in 2004. Who makes the hands, makes the heads, makes the hair, makes the hips? Who draws the eyes, fits the joints, paints the lips, sews the zips? Who ties the bows, brushes the curls, folds the boxes, loads the trucks? Who makes, who makes, who makes, who makes? The Barbie doll that catches my eye, of the 400 in the museum in Taishan, is a tall, thin, blonde figure dressed in Taiwanese indigenous clothes. I kneel to inspect the loose-fitting garment hanging over Barbie's impossible curves. She smiles back at me as if everything is normal. The museum guide points to a row of Barbies dressed in designs by local middle school kids, none of whom were alive to see the Mattel factory shut its doors over 30 years ago. Descendants of descendants, they cut and sew for her. Tiny stitches to make tiny clothes. On the wall, a black and white photo shows a weekend volleyball game from the 1970s. Taiwanese factory girls with Farrah Fawcett waves grin for the camera. In another photo, a row of their permed heads bend over their 1980s popped collars, flipping through pages of night school books, studying long after their shifts were over. At the gates outside, a crowd of young men wait, eager to see the Taishan dolls walk to their dorms, curious to know if the rumors are true that the girls are as pretty as the Barbies they make. 8,000 workers' hearts matched to the metronomes of machines. 250 legs per hour, 50,000 heads per day, 6 days a week, learning to assemble the ideal woman, to produce her piece by piece, not so much from the plastic parts that pass through their fingers, but from their own lives, on and off the assembly line, transformed by the decades, earning independence far from family, tradition, and home. When the factory first opened, the workers used a rice cooker to steam Barbie's hair and chopsticks to curl it. They ate chiffon and baozi for breakfast, rice and vegetables and meat for lunch. One finished Barbie cost more than an entire month of a worker's wages. The rice paddies beside the factory were littered with abandoned Barbie doll arms, legs, and heads, pocketed from production and tossed before factory guards could pat down a girl's bell-bottoms. When the factory closed, thousands went their separate ways, back to their families in the countryside or to new factories. Some started their own hair salons and KTV joints, each with a few Barbies to remind them, since they know who makes, who makes, who makes, who makes. So I can't tell you how much it means to be able to share these poems. So often when I'm in the United States, I'm trying to share more of our culture with people there.
我很难跟各位解释我现在有多么激动，我可以在这里跟各位分享这些诗。因为在美国的时候，我经常希望能够多跟大家分享有关于我们自己的文化。
But of course, when I'm here, I do not feel Taiwanese at all.
但是呢，很奇怪的是，虽然我人在这里，但我只是不觉得我是台湾人。
Here I'm like just a step above a foreigner.
我觉得自己在这里，感觉好像是有点像是外国人的。
So it's an interesting experience of double consciousness.
所以这其实是一个非常有趣的经验，这两边都不是，又两边好像是的感觉。
But I've learned over the course of my life to be thankful for this dual identity or multiple identities I have.
但是我其实非常感谢我能够在我的生命当中拥有这样子两种不同的感受，甚至是多元性的感受。
So it's interesting being in the United States where some things that are very basic about Asian cultures in general, people don't understand.
那其实在美国有非常多西方对于东方很基本，但是却不见得是真实的这种偏见。
And unfortunately, I think for people all around the world, it's hard to imagine people who are different from you as human and real as you are.
但其实我觉得对于全世界人来说都一样，其实我们非常难以去想象，不同的人来自不同的文化，他到底在想些什么，感受什么。
So this next piece is a little bit about all of that.
所以下一首诗是综合以上我讲的东西，大概都包含在里面。
So this piece is called Packing Slip.
那我们一起来看看这首诗。
I am watching a Steve Martin movie with my mother. The last gag in the film is a scene about a factory in Taiwan. Asian women in Chinaman hats run around nonsensically frantic. They speak gibberish, but are otherwise silent. My normally good-postured mother sinks down in her seat. I can feel her embarrassment and shame. I am working with a downtown theater artist who orders a set of Zantai suits from a website online. When a zipper breaks, he and the bleached blonde lead actress look at each other and say, China, as if the country were substandard and not their lack of willingness to pay a higher price. I'm eating at the Din Tai Fung in Shanghai, and I wish I didn't understand English. Two businessmen, one American, one Canadian, trade tips on how to keep a mistress while traveling and the benefits of raising teens under Chinese media censorship. This is true. This is really what they were talking about. One says to the other, remember, the factories are not your friends. He snatches a soup dumpling with his chopsticks and advises the rookie on how to cut manufacturing costs by gluing seams instead of sewing them. I will be brief. The word is disrespect. How about we give you the same amount of money, the same amount of time, the same amount of pressure, and let's see how well you do.
感觉还好吧？
So I have to admit, though, it is fairly natural for people to have difficulties understanding people who are different from them.
但我必须承认，这其实真的非常难让一般的人去了解另外一个跟你不同文化的人到底在想些什么或感受什么。
Proximity equals familiarity equals understanding.
所以其实视角跟感受性还有你的理解是相对等的。
So as frustrating as that may be, it happens in all different parts of the world for all different kinds of people.
这样子的挫败感，其实让我感受到，它其实是分布在全世界的各个角落都在发生同样的事情。
So this next piece is about that.
所以下一首诗其实讲的就是这件事情。
This piece is called Points of View.
这件事情叫做视角。
when Waipua visited us in the United States back in the 1980s, she declared that all Americans looked alike and that she couldn't tell them apart. But Waipua, my sister and I said in our broken Mandarin, they have different skin colors, different eye colors, different hair colors. She shook her head and confirmed, I still can't tell them apart. Her eyes attuned to what American eyes so often miss, the millions of variations of the same combination of black hair and brown eyes. Different face shape, different eye shape, different skin tone, different lips. During college, I spent a summer in Taiwan, traveling up and down the island with 1,000 drunken overseas Chinese students. We visited an old military memorial with a bronze bust of a Dutch colonist. His curly hair and sagging jowls were realistic enough, but seen through the eyes of the Taiwanese sculptor, his nose was comically enormous. When I returned to campus, my white American friends looked like giants to me. Their legs, butts, noses, hands, and mouths gargantuan and garish as they spoke. In elementary school, I was taught to see colonists as brave pioneers. In college, I learned to see them as deranged sociopaths. I later understood that most of them were neither. The lower ranks comprised of poor young men, traveling far from home, fleeing from disease and famine, unable to feed themselves or their families. Young men who were persecuted or killed for being queer at their outposts. Young men who weren't allowed to marry until they were promoted to officer. Young men who were barred from having children in the empire's refusal to let the natives see their troops pour. Colonized, colonizers, colonizing, in a colonizer pecking order amongst the Portuguese, the Spanish, and the Dutch. La Isla Formosa, these men named Taiwan, the beautiful island. What they saw through their eyes when their ships landed on shore. In New York City, the freckled theater director starts to cry when I tell her that it is unacceptable. She has mistaken me for somebody else. A Korean girl who's a couple of inches shorter, a couple of years older, and neither talks nor dresses like me at all. This would be permissible, except I have known this woman for over 3 years and appeared in 4 of her shows. This would be permissible, except we had been talking for 5 minutes at that point, and when I asked who else would be performing, she named me. To myself. When she registers that I am not who she thought I was, she pleads that she's just fatigued and not a racist. And then her tears start to come. Gushing with excuses and explanations, I let her go on, and I go somewhere else in my mind, wondering, what has she seen all these years when she's looked me in my eyes? A funny story related to that
这里面其实有一个有趣的故事。
is my cousin who lives here in Taipei was telling me he thinks Americans don't realize how sophisticated Asian people are.
他觉得他的表哥堂哥觉得呢，美国人大概不太认得台湾人能够很细节的去分辨所有的台湾人。
And I said, Americans still can't even tell us apart. So.
那他告诉他的堂兄说，对，美国人实在是没有办法分辨我们是谁。
So there's a lot of distance to go.
所以呢，它其实还有非常长的距离，我们要如何去走进这件事情。
So I've been noticing some differences between my life in America and my couple of weeks here in Taipei.
我其实开始可以分辨很多事情，在我过去在美国的生活，以及这2周我在台北的生活。
I'm also realizing I'm not just an American, I'm a New Yorker, so that may be totally different also.
同时，我也认真的发现说，我其实不是个美国人，我是一个纽约客，而纽约客这件事情会让这整件事情变得完全不一样。
Because I'm sure there's many Americans who don't think that New York is actually a part of America.
因为其实呢，有非常多的美国人其实不认为纽约人是美国人的一部分。
But something I've been noticing in terms of beauty and fashion is that American women, as compared to women in Taipei, American women are pretty much naked all of the time.
但对我来说呢，比较美国女生跟台湾女生之间，我认为呢，美国女生很多时候其实是裸体的。
When I walk through the streets of New York, all I see are magazines of women with their boobs pushed all the way up.
在美国呢，你不管走到哪里，都会看到在杂志上面的女生永远是把胸挤得非常非常高。
So, and when I was at the 7-Eleven here, all the magazine covers have writing on the front.
当我在 7-Eleven 看到台湾的杂志，你们的封面永远都只是字而已。
I saw one photo on the magazine cover of a woman in a bra. It was GQ magazine.
我唯一看到的一本杂志，上面有一个女生，然后穿着她的胸罩而已，但是那是一本 GQ 杂志。
But that magazine was hidden behind all the other magazines.
但是这本杂志呢，很明显的是被藏在所有杂志的最后面。
So I realized that some of my taste clothing-wise are much skimpier than people normally wear here.
所以我突然发现，我平常对衣服的喜好以及穿着，其实是跟现在在我所在的位置的人非常不一样的。
And even some of the shirts I packed, I threw back in my suitcase saying, I can't wear that on the street here.
所以我其实带了某些衣服来，但是我在打开它们的时候，发现，我可能没有办法在这里穿这些衣服。
So this poem is a little bit about that.
所以呢，这首诗是关于这件事情。
This poem is called A Little Skin, or the enduring power of the bustier.
让我们一起来欣赏。
I had a Barbie whose leg kept falling off. I dressed her in a yellow strapless jumpsuit that always slipped down over her boobs. Her unhinged leg swung around loose in her pant leg until it fell out. My other Barbie had a pink and purple Oscar de la Renta gown which consisted of a skin-tight sequin tube top and a long ruffled skirt that could be styled in different ways. Over the shoulder, around the neck, encircling the waist. My other favorite dolls were my She-Ra and her best friend Angel, whose gem-encrusted bustiers and knee-high boots were permanently molded onto their plastic bodies. After kindergarten, I watched Wonder Woman on TV. Linda Carter with her arms akimbo, a golden eagle spread across the firm cups of her bustier, a golden lasso looped on the hip of her satin hot pants, her knee-high boots pressing the pedals of her invisible plane. My immigrant parents didn't understand that whole MPAA movie rating thing, so I saw Prince's Purple Rain in the theaters at the age of 6. All I can remember is Apollonia swaying on stage, smoky-eyed and big-haired in her lace bustier, garter belt, and cape over her shoulders. I got it in my head that it was very important to be sexy. Cyndi Lauper with her candy-colored hair and her bustier, Madonna with her boy toy belt and her bustier, Whitney Houston, long-legged and lean on the cover of her first album with her slicked back hair in a white, hot, one-piece bathing suit. By the time I got into junior high, my mother let me wear whatever I wanted to, low-cut or short, except for some odd cultural reason she freaked whenever my belly button showed. This was her idea of ultimate sluttiness. In seventh grade, in addition to our protests on the invasion of Iraq, the girls at my junior high school staged a protest for the right to wear off-the-shoulder sweaters. Apparently, this was becoming a problem. The principal sent a letter home to our parents. Erin O'Neill asked me in woodshop if I was wearing my off-the-shoulder sweater that day as a part of the protest. I wasn't, but I pulled down both sides of my sweater even lower and I said, yes, I am. In high school, I wore a white cropped tank top, a pair of short shorts, a purple and blue striped floor-length vest, and a pair of black thigh-high boots. To school. A skater kid in consumer economics looked at me and said, "You dress that way because you want guys to look at you." I said, "No, I dress this way because I like to." for myself, and went back to my assignment of balancing my imaginary checkbook. The adult in me can see the issues with this, that somewhere deep in my psyche I link being scantily clad with extraordinary or magical or notable female ability, or at least the unalienable right for me to control how much of my body and sexuality I reveal myself. I think I'm not the only one, as I see my friends in their see-through button-down shirts and peekaboo bras. We all zip up our knee-high boots and contemplate whether or not to wear jackets in the middle of winter. Even as I write this now, I somewhat sheepishly notice that the photo on the homepage of my website is me in a bustier. My personal rebellion for this shot was telling myself that I did not have to smile, that I did not have to be pleasant and cheerful all of the time, when at the time I really, really wasn't. So there I am, scowling in my bustier, irritated and sexy, eyes narrowed, décolletage exposed, calling on the pop goddesses of my youth to summon my inner superpower and all the cleavage that an A cup can muster. Everybody doing all right?
Yeah. 大家感觉还好吧？
Great. I know, I was like looking at those photos, and those were really things that I looked at as a child all of the time.
我是真的小时候一直在看到这些图片、照片、这些讯息。
And as an adult, I really think that is not appropriate.
现在我长大了，我觉得那真的是不是应该要做的事情。
But it's all 2020 hindsight.
Okay, 所以但是这是很久很久以前的事情了。
But we can see all of these things start from a very young age.
但你可以发现，所有这些观念跟想法，其实是从很小的时候开始的。
I think it's very complicated how all of these different pressures around gender change over time.
这其实是很难去解释这些关于性别的压力跟议题是什么时候以及怎么样开始改变的。
It's not so easy to say it's just one or two things. It's 1,000 tiny things.
很难去界定它是只是一件事情或者两件事，它其实是像成千上百的小事件一样。
All the different messages we get from so many different sources shape who we are every single day.
所以我们生活里面的小小的资讯、小小的讯息或影像，其实都在把我们塑造成某一种特定的样子。
So when we think about the gap between different genders and the kind of inequality we see today, it's something that happens over a very long period of time.
所以在今天我们所看到的两性或者是性别之间的鸿沟，或那些我们没有办法理解的事情，其实都是好久好久以前开始慢慢累积下来的。
So this next poem is about that.
对，下一首诗是关于这件事情。
Imbalance. It starts early. At the annual holiday party at my mom's work, they divided us kids into 2 lines for gifts. One for boys, one for girls. The boy beside me got a walking, talking robot with red glowing eyes. I got a set of brown and beige toy pots and pans. My sister and I were the first girls on our block to get a Nintendo, so the other girls in our neighborhood came over to test it out. None of us said it, but we all knew that the boys would never allow us to touch their games. That was obvious, that we'd be shut out. My sister subscribed to Ms. Magazine and Sassy, and we flipped through their pages, confident that we were well on our way to being different women than our mother or our mother's mother. In high school, I cut all the hair jagged off of my blonde Barbie doll, tore her frilly wedding dress, stuffed her arched toes into plastic combat boots, and scribbled black eye makeup with pen beneath her starry blue eyes. In college, I sat in a circle with all the other girlfriends of the guys in the band. We talked about shopping, while the guys talked about musical gear. How the hell did I get on this side? I thought to myself. In a bar in the East Village, a guy pointed down and asked me once, "What makes you so different?" I stood with my hands on my hips, feet wide apart, while the other 3 women stood with arms by their sides, feet close together. At the recent fundraiser meeting, the committee members looked over to the male artist whenever I spoke. Their eyes barely met mine. A board member emailed me to say that when a man and a woman are a team, the man usually takes the lead. I didn't respond to that email. Chatting over lunch with 2 white male friends, I am amazed by the lack of things they talk about. No talk of racism or sexual harassment, no trying to angle their way in or out. They talk only of what they want to do and how they want to do it. Earlier this week, I have a dream that a white male writing mentor is trying to attack me sexually. I can feel the heat of his voice on my neck and in my ear. He breaks through walls and floors to find me. I fight back with the metal lid of a garbage can, a python, and a vat of mixed concrete. I wake from the dream. I wish there was no truth to it. I have the teen girls scream at the workshop, "We speak with the intention of being heard." They are loud, impassioned, feisty. It never occurs to me that's only because there are no men around. In the next workshop, where the girls outnumber the boys, every hand raised, every word offered comes from the young men. When the boys leave, I ask the girls why. They tell me it's not gender, it's personality. They tell me it's not gender, it's because the boys aren't as considerate or smart. They tell me it's not gender, and I ask if it's the same at their schools and their clubs. They nod and say yes. They tell me it's not gender, and their certainty breaks my heart. It starts early. The messaging, this is for you, this is not. The crimping of ambitions, the flattening of dreams, rendered soundless, rendered invisible, the imbalance, swallowing whole our tongues and our hearts. Everybody doing all right?
感觉还好吗？
对。
要听反应。